Hello YouTube, this is Jacob, Good to Go Gear again, here to do a quick kind of use video on the Esee 3. This is one I think y'all seen before in some of my EDC videos. Sorry the camera is upside down to me. I've blacked out all the lettering to prevent rustage, or any rusting. I just used some car touch-up paint. Just some quick specs on the Esee 3. The overall length is 8.31 inches. The blade length from here to here is 3.875. Or excuse me, from the handle to tip is 3.875. The actual cutting edge is 3.375. The blade thickness, let's see if y'all can see that, is 0.125, so it is pretty thin. It does have a really fine tip on it. It's a drop point drop point blade design. Man, this is confusing. Just bear with me. It's a drop point blade design. It's made out of 1095 high carbon steel. That's why I went ahead and put that car touch-up paint on there to just kind of help with the rust prevention. I like having coatings on my blade. If you don't, that's fine, but I do. I don't like having to worry as much about the rusting and all that, because I have had blades that are high carbon just get some surface rust, you know, on hunting trips where they do get wet or damp from the moisture, humidity, condensation, whatever. And I don't like having to mess with that, so I'd rather just get it coated. That way, you know, if all that rust is my cutting edge, you know, some use or some sharpening, you know, helps take care of that. The blade grind, it is a full flat grind. I don't know if you can see, there's not much of a blade grind. It's just full flat grind. The handle length is 4.375 inches. The handle thickness is 0.5, so you get half an inch in width. The color, this is the Esee 3P black, so it's the Esee 3 plain edge with black. It came with this shitty, they used to come with Kydex, but it came with this shitty plastic, molded plastic sheath. Not super impressed with this, but it does work. I mean, I haven't had any issues with it, and I carry it in my front left pocket, you know, most of the time. So I mean, it does work. Overall, I do like the knife. It's kind of my EDC fixed blade. I can't go with a bigger one. And I was actually just outside chilling with the dog and carving on some wood we have out here, and my wife's like, why don't you do a video on it? And I was like, I don't know. Which you think, like, well, yeah, let's videotape it, but it's just, I don't know, I wasn't thinking about it. So let's just get some use on it. One thing I do like about the coating is, even though I mean, this will come off. I get a little bit of gun oil. I use gun oil on my knives, but there's some stuff there on the tip that'll come off. I mean, these Esee coatings they're pretty bomb proof. You know, I mean, you can't tell much usage. I mean, I use it for cutting tape, opening boxes, and as long as you get some gun oil, get that stuff off, the finish, man, it still looks good as new. I do like that about that. Yeah, but on the carving, I mean, it gets some really fine shavings. I noticed that this knife is not the best at feather sticking, but it does get some fine shavings, and really that's all you need, in my opinion. I mean, if you got a striker and you got some fine shavings, whether they're attached to a major, you know, stick or not, you know, the fine shavings, you know, I mean, I can break that just doing that. It's the shavings, that'll help get the fire going, how thick or thin they are, and it does get them pretty thick. And then if you want to you know, do some deeper cuts, it doesn't seem to have any issue with that. Where's the piece? I don't know if I can find it. When I was carving earlier, I whittled it down to just about nothing. Oh, here it is. Yeah, this is the piece I was carving on earlier. It was bigger, not quite as thick as this, but it was bigger like that, and no rhyme or reason, just out here screwing around. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to just, like William Collins says sometimes, just come out back and whittle on a stick. So I just come out here and, you know, just mess around. And so yeah. Something else, like I said about the shavings, let's get where y'all, make sure y'all can see this. And like I said, you know, I hear people say, oh, I suck at feather sticking, or I'm not very good at it. I don't really think that matters. I mean, just do like that, you know, and put the knife in a stump or whatever you got. Just draw the wood back on it, and you'll get some shavings, you know, that way. I mean, if you look at these that I'm getting, they're still, you know, really brittle. This one's a little thicker right here, but I bet with a feather stick, I mean, it was still, or not, excuse me, not a feather stick, but with a ferro rod, it was still light. So I don't know why everybody makes such a big deal about feather sticking, you know, as being part of bushcraft. I don't really think that it is myself. I think it's just some people like to think they're better at something than other people, or make it a bigger deal than it is. I don't think you should base a knife off of whether it'll feather stick. I mean, hell, I bet if you sharpen a butter knife, as thin as a butter knife is, if you get a good edge on it, it'll feather stick. So, you know, I don't know. But I like the Esee knives. I like the coatings on them. The micarta is, I like the texture of it. I like how you can choke up on this. You know, I don't really know what kind of detailed work. Like I said, I don't really carve anything. I just like to come out here and just carve. I don't know. The dog will eat it, and you know, he'll eat the wood. So anyway, but yeah, that's kind of just a quick overview of the SE3. I mean, it's good at that. I use it, like I said, as an everyday knife, kind of as a neck knife, but I keep it in my front left pocket behind my EDC pouch, and I use it for cutting tape, you know, opening boxes, you know, whatever. I've never been in a survival situation, and, you know, hopefully I never will, but if I do, I feel confident that this knife would get me through whatever I encounter. I mean, we live in a pretty modern world, and I think this knife would do fine. And if I were out in the wilderness, this knife would still be with me. I'd hopefully have my bigger fixed blade with me, like the SE6 or the SE4. I love the SE4. It's kind of the perfect medium between, you know, small like this and a full-size blade. And one thing I like about this over some other neck knives that I've had is that, you know, it's a 4-finger knife, you know, on the grip. I really enjoy that. There is some jimping up here, and truthfully, I think it's perfect. I'm not a huge fan of jimping. I don't swing one way or the other. I don't care if it's got it. I don't care if it doesn't. You know, when you choke up on it, it's enough jimping that I don't even notice it really. You know, it doesn't create a hot spot. It's not anything that hurts my hand. So I mean, I guess if I was wearing a glove, it might be added to my grip and my hands are wet. But the only time I get my knives and stuff out in the rain is if I have to, like if I'm hunting, or sometimes if I'm fishing, you know, camping, and you know, you don't have any option. But I always try to carry gun oil and stuff with me to you know, lubricate them up and make sure they're going to be protected from rust, because everybody says your knife's your most important tool. So I think, you know, knife care should be the second most important thing in your bag. You know, your gun oil, sharpening stone, knowing those skills, like knowing how to sharpen a knife, knowing how to maintain your blade to keep it in good repair. A lot of people give me grief because they're like, oh man, all your knives and guns and stuff, they all look brand new, like you hardly ever use them. And it's like, I take it as a compliment. They mean it as an insult most of the time, but I take it as a compliment, because if my gear, you know, looked like shit, looked old and rusted and beat the hell up, that's not very good, because, in my opinion, because it shows I don't take care of my equipment. And you know, I think taking care of your equipment should be our #1 priority, because everybody says, oh man, you know, the knife's your most important survival tool out in the field. You know, or some people argue and say shelter, fire, water, whatever. But you know, I watched that show Naked and Afraid, and one of the most common things people bring is a cutting tool. It can be duplicated out in the wild, but having a good, solid, reliable cutting tool is hard to duplicate. You know, even if you flint knap something, I mean, it can still break, it's stone. So I think having a good, reliable cutting tool is essential. And you know, like that Naked and Afraid show, I've always joked around and said, you know, if I'm ever on it or not if I'm ever on it. But since watching that, I think the 3 things I would need for me to survive, like the 3 bare minimums, would be a knife, a fire starter, and some form of something to boil water. You know, a stainless steel pot of some sort. Doesn't have to be like a cup or a canteen. It could be you know, a pot, just something that I could boil water in. Because I think, you know, if most people had those 3 things, you know, a cutting tool, a combustion device, and a stainless steel container of some sort, you know, out there that you see them, they build shelter. They can find water, they just can't purify the water a lot of the time. You know, having that knife and getting a fire going are, in my opinion, some of the 2 hardest things to do besides purifying your water. And if you can boil your water, you can get it purified and collect it. You know, that's a plus in my book. So that's just my opinion. But anyway, off topic. But it's just a quick overview and some use. You know, like I said, I wasn't planning on doing this video today, but it's just an overview and some use of me using the SE3 just out on the back porch, whittling on a stick. But I do definitely feel, you know, if this is the only knife you had, I think, and not just from carving on it, but, you know, from what use I've done with it, you won't see me baton with it. I have seen videos where people do baton with it, but, you know, hopefully if something bad were to happen, I at least have my my EDC bag where I keep tools for batoning or tools that I would use to baton. But if all I have on me for some reason what's on my person, you know, in a shit hit the fan scenario where that's literally all I had was what's on my person, and I had this knife with me, I feel confident it would get me through whatever I need to get through. So again, Jacob, we're good to go gear, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.